Hi, everybody, and welcome to Riding the Wave. I'm Mark Healey, the editor-in-chief of the Wave newspaper, and joining me today is Rockaway's own Sid Rosenberg, host of Sid and Friends in the Morning, the #1 show in AM radio. And it's great to see you, Sid. Thanks for joining us today.
It's great to be here with you, Mark, and you guys have been very good to me since I moved to Rockaway about 2 years ago. I not only have one subscription to the Wave, I have two. So I love your paper.
I appreciate it, Sid. I've been wanting to get you on for a while because you've been doing so many different things, not just for Rockaway, but for, the different communities, since you've, been doing such a great job on the show. And the first thing I want to talk about is, you made this trip to Israel. You brought the show to Israel. Give me an understanding of why you wanted to do that.
Well, I made a promise to not just my listeners, but my friends, all the Jewish people, that after October the 7th, I was going to go. I'd never gone before. We flirted with the idea of going when Gabriel, my son, was a bar mitzvah boy 2 years ago. We never made it. So I really needed to go after this. And it's funny because when I decided to go, many people said to me, why would you go now? I mean, it's dangerous and it is somewhat dangerous. Obviously, most of the fighting back then, when I went in January, was in Gaza. There was a little bit of activity in the north and some in Judea and Samaria. But I said, well, this is exactly the time you need to go. When the weather is nice and people on the beaches at Haifa and Netanya, that's not the time to go. And I got people, they would stop me, Mark, in the streets of Jerusalem. Right in front of my wife, Danielle, I was shocked. And they'd be like, hey, thanks for coming. I'm like, you know me? They're like, yes, we do. Thank you for being here. So I decided after October the 7th, as a proud Jewish man, not the most religious, not even close. I'm a member of a Reformed temple. I don't observe Shabbat. I don't eat kosher, but I'm a proud Jew that I was going to go. And it was the trip of a lifetime.
Talk about a little bit about what your experience was, being there for the first time, and you talked about it a little bit about meeting people, but I mean, talk about what it meant to you, to be there and to take in everything that was going on, especially after October 7th.
It meant everything. And my kids even more. In fact, my daughter Ava is going back in June. It'll be her second visit, only a couple of months for birthright. My son, who was afraid to wear a yarmulke in the streets in New York, now wears what I'm wearing right now, which is the Israeli dog tags, Am Yisrael Chai, and the hostages on the back. He wears it on the train in New York City every day with no fear. So for all of us, it changed our lives. And we had heard that before we went, but it's kind of like everybody says that's going to change your life. I got to tell you, it really does. We landed in Tel Aviv. I was not in that airport for 15 minutes, and I felt different. Of course, when you get off the plane, there's a picture of every hostage that is still there, 134, dead or alive, I'm not sure, but 134 pictures and all these dog tags, thousands hanging from the ceiling. And right away, you feel this unbelievable support and love for the Jewish people. And then, of course, I stayed in Jerusalem, but I did make the trip down to Gaza with my son and daughter. And it's very hard to articulate in words. You have to go. Things in life that you always say, it's like being a parent, You can't really talk about being a parent until you look in that crib and you see that little kid and you go, oh my God, I love this person so much. They're a day old. This is the same thing. It's very similar. There's no real logical explanation for it. It's hard to articulate. But as soon as you get off the plane, you feel like, oh my God, this is where I should be. This is where I need to be. And I can't wait to come back.
When you were making these plans to go, Sid, was there pushback from WABC, John Catsimatidis? Like, how did they handle your request to go do this? Especially given that, the danger that, or the perceived danger that you might have been facing, to go there.
No, there was no pushback at all. In fact, they were very enthusiastic about it. They know I'm a proud Jew. They are certainly on the right side of things, this radio station, part of the reason why we're so popular. And were they concerned? Sure. We talked about security issues, and I even had some undercover detectives, one guy from Long Island that I was with in Israel. So they were concerned, but at no point did they ever consider not doing it. They were fully supportive of me and my trip and my family going. And in fact, I was on the air with John Catsimatidis once or twice from the Holy Land, and it was great. So No, at no point were they not supportive. They were behind me 100%. They love the idea, and certainly we've reaped benefits since, even to this day, doing this Zoom right now, and people are still talking about the trip because other hosts have gone since, but I started it, and it still seems to be a very, very big deal in the Jewish community.
Well, I remember when you were announced you were going, I was like, wow. I mean, that certainly, meant a lot to anyone that listens to the show. And look, there is inherent risk anytime you do a remote anywhere. But to go to Israel, basically, where everything is happening and all this stuff that's, that we're seeing every day here, and how it's affecting, all these other demonstrations and everything else that's going on. But before we get to that, because I know you have opinions about that, let's talk a little bit about the State of the Union address, which was, shortly after you came back from Israel. And you had a few things to say when you went to the State of the Union.
I did. In fact, I just saw Congressman Estes from Kansas moments ago. And I said, a lot of people don't realize that I was kicked out of the State of the Union. The Gold Star father got all the press, and God love him, he should get all the press. I mean, his son died, and that man's a hero, and he should get all the press. But I was the other guy. There were two people thrown out that night, and I was the other one.
Right.
I was sitting there, and I was furious. I mean, it was one lie after lie. President Biden, he really can't speak for very long without lying, but this was 45 minutes. And, we had these people downstairs, these children in their white T-shirts, they're politicians. They look like children hooting and hollering and clapping and dancing like a Sunday morning gospel service. And then you had Republicans sitting there in their suits and ties, not saying or even moving, not saying a word. And got about 45 minutes in, no Israel mentions. So I'm sitting up there in the gallery going, hey, can we hear about Israel? And people telling me, shh. And then finally he gets to Israel and he says, we've got Israel's back, but according to Palestinian Ministry of Health, 30,000 Palestinians. So I stood up, I go, says who? All of a sudden, the Palestinian Ministry of Health, the Hamas Ministry of Health is a credible source for the amount of Palestinians that are dead. And if 30,000 are dead, they were probably killed, about 27,000 of those by Palestinians. So as soon as I said, says who, Secret Service came raining over. They threatened to throw me out. I said, I'm not going anywhere. I said, why can those ladies down there yell and scream and applaud? If they can applaud, I can certainly say, says who? He said, well, here's your choice. If you don't leave, I'm going to arrest you. And at that point, I knew it would be a big pain in the ass. My wife was there. Danielle was there. So I said, okay, fine. I left. I went outside. I was talked to by about 4 or 5 different people, the sergeant of arms. In the meantime, Congressman Comer walked up and shook my hand. Congressman Anthony D'Esposito came up and shook my hand and got me out of there. But it was quite a night. And since then, as you know, people will stop me in the street and say, hey, says who? We've sold shirts and sweatshirts, and it's become a pretty big deal. But I just voiced, my opinion on the President of the United States using a terrorist organization as a credible source when it comes to dead Palestinians, and I was not okay with that.
You've been on this issue for a long time, even before your trip to Israel, even before, your says who at the State of the Union. And, you've had on Dov Hikind, and you've had on so many people to talk about the anti-Semitism, the things that are going on in the city, in the state, in the country. And I know that recently, you were one of the first ones, if not the first one, to do a counter protest, against what's going on some of these college campuses, including Columbia.
I was really the first. It was a week ago today, and I went on the air at 6 o'clock in the morning. I got a phone call 8 days ago, a week ago yesterday, Sunday, from the actor Michael Rappaport. And I know Rapp is not the biggest Trump guy, so we don't agree much on politics, but he is a fierce voice for Israel. He's been back 3 or 4 times, speaks to the hostage families. I love Rapp when it comes to this issue. And he called me the Sunday 8 days ago, and he said, let's go down to Columbia and break some heads. He was serious. And I said, okay, I'm in. I'm not always looking for a good fight. I can't stand these animals. So Monday morning, I came on the air a week ago today at 6 a.m. and I said, you know what? I'm thinking about going down to Columbia today, or up to Columbia. And it took about 2 seconds for Long Island Congressman Anthony D'Esposito to say to me, I'm coming too. So now I had Rappaport, I had D'Esposito. Now I know I've got the makings of a pretty good rally, pretty good conference. An hour later, I got a text from D'Esposito. He said, by the way, Nassau County Executive Bruce Blakeman, he wants to come too. And a half hour after that, he said, by the way, Rockland County Congressman Mike Lawler, he wants to come too. So before you knew it, I had Blakeman and Lawler, D'Esposito, Rappaport, about 100 of my listeners, and we were out there last Monday across the street. And the reason why I thought that day was perfect, Mark, was because that night was the first night of Passover. And I knew how holy a day it was for the Jewish people, how important it would be for the Jewish people to see us out there, for all good Americans, not just Jewish people. Any decent American knows these animals, a lot of these guys paid, I get it, but some of these students are out there in support of murder and rape. That's what Hamas did. And Hamas are Palestinians. That's the bottom line. They're not Irish. They're not Italians. They're Palestinians. They may be progressive Palestinians, but they're Palestinians. And we know this, 90% of Palestinians vote with Hamas. They celebrate in the streets. They dance, they hand out candies, and they teach their kids at the tender age of seven, that killing a Jew is a mitzvah, like you would say in the Jewish religion. So I don't want to hear about innocent Palestinians. These kids, whether they're paid or not, are out there promoting murder. They are violent. They're talking about the final solution, which the Nazis talked about when they killed 6 million Jews. They're taking down the American flag, putting up the Hezbollah flag. They are terrorists. And I felt like last Monday was a perfect time to do it, and it came off well.
What's the reception? I mean, because I know you're out and about in Rockaway all the time. What was the reception to, a lot of these things that you've been doing and standing up? And look, it's not, you have a radio show, you have a great platform, but it's not like you only say these things when you're on the show. You say these things in public. You and I have had these conversations. What's the reception been in Rockaway by people that you run into about some of the things that you've been standing up for?
No, listen, I say these things at La Sorrentina. I say these things at Pico. I say these things at Rocco's. I say these things at Panino Rostico. I say these things at Cali's. You name it, I say it. And the reception from the people in Rockaway has been so amazing. From the day I moved there 2 years ago, when people, I swear to God, Mark, I'm not exaggerating, were stopping and honking their horn in front of my house, taking selfies in front of my house. I very rarely can walk to 129, about a 7-block walk, without getting some car stopping and honking their horn, go Sid, or people in the street. Certainly can't go into a restaurant without my neighbors, coming up to me and thanking me and handshaking me and all that. The reception has been amazing. I feel like Trump. I really do. I'm kind of like a mini Trump in Rockaway. It's fantastic. They've been great, and they're good people. They're great Americans. They're not all Jewish. Clearly, most of them are not. It doesn't matter. They're great Americans. They're fine people. I love where I live. I maintain that is the best neighborhood anywhere in New York. It's the only place I'll ever live again in New York. If I'm not here, I'm going to Florida. I got to be honest with you. So it's been great. I love these people, and every day, every single day, somebody says something to make me feel good.
Obviously, this is an election year. A lot of people in Rockaway are talking about it. We haven't really gotten into the stretch run yet where people are, we're trying to get debates together with some of these candidates, interviewing the candidates, making sure that, people know what they're voting for, who they're voting for, what issues they should be voting for. And for me, as someone who has, this big platform that you have with, #1 show, and, you've won numerous awards over the last year or so, from like law enforcement, different things that have come across for the things that you stand up for, the issues that you're not afraid to talk about, where some people are afraid to talk about because they're afraid of, offending someone. You don't ever worry about that. I mean, that's one thing. I've known you for over 20 years. You've never worried about offending anyone. So for me, like how are you going to go about weighing in on this election year? I mean, I know Tom Sullivan personally, So obviously, I know you support him, but how are you going to handle your influence and the things that you do to weigh in on where you live and the elections that that are facing all the issues that are facing the people of Rockaway?
I mean, look, on a federal level, people listen to me know I'm a big Donald Trump guy. I've become very friendly with Mr. Trump. President Trump and I spent time together in Mar-a-Lago just about a month ago, from a nice intimate lunch at his golf course to a movie at Mar-a-Lago that night, where he pointed me out and said, "That's my guy Sid. He's great. He's the best looking radio host in America. He's on this show once every 6 or 7 weeks." But on a local level, yes, Tom Sullivan, he's a hero. Now, I know the Sullivan family, to be completely honest, for the better part of 45 years. It doesn't matter. Tom Sullivan served in Iraq. He served in Afghanistan. He served in Kuwait. And on top of that, as the buildings were coming down on 9/11, he ran inside and saved lives. Think about that. This guy fought for the United States in 3 different countries, saved lives on 9/11. What exactly, outside of being someone's kid, has Stacey Pfeiffer Amato ever done? The answer is nothing. And she cheated. She stole it. I'll say it. You don't have to say it. They stole that last election win from Tom Sullivan. They cheated. They ain't going to do it again. I can tell you that. So Tom Sullivan's my guy. Look, I'd like to see Paul King win. Gregory Meeks, he's had that job for a very long time. He doesn't do anything. This guy's always someplace else. He's in some other country. In the meantime, you've got a lot of people living in a lot of buildings in that area of Rockaway that are very unhappy. Buildings are not being tended to. Folks are not getting what they need in that area. Gregory Meeks, kind of like Chuck Schumer, sticks around every year. He gets the vote. He does nothing. So Paul King is guy I'd love to see win. And then there's folks I'm not happy with. I mean, look, Joanne Ariola, for example. Joanne was very good to me when I first came to New York. Very good. And even last year, she would call me continuously. But the truth is, she's done a lousy job with the illegal crisis, the migrants. Lousy job. Me and Curtis held 2 rallies last summer. Curtis stopped it on Staten Island. We were starting to gain that same traction at Floyd Bennett Field for Queens and Brooklyn. Joanne steps in with her, her political friends, and they go to court. They hire this attorney, which made no sense. He wasn't even the type of attorney we needed, and she got nothing done. And now they're bringing in more tents and more illegals with the weather getting nice and my beautiful wife and daughter in bikinis over the summer. I'm not happy about that, okay? So, and 116 is still a mess. So a person like her, for example, she needs to clean it up, figure out a way to get it done. She's lost my support. So there are folks I like that are running. There are folks in charge right now that need to be better. Overall, I think for the most part, we are not represented well in Brooklyn and Queens in that area. We need better candidates, people like Tom Sullivan. That's your first choice.
So, this isn't just, a radio host talking. You live here, right? So you're dealing with all the same issues that everybody else is dealing with. Obviously, the tragic death of Jonathan Diller in Far Rockaway, a few weeks ago, that was a terrible, terrible story. Guy leaves behind a young wife, a young boy, and you've always been very supportive of law enforcement. And, it just seems to be, and I've written about this, so this isn't something that just coming out of left field for me, is that the respect and the support for local law enforcement, the NYPD specifically, seems to be waning. It's not getting better. It seems to be waning in city government. And, that's something that I know you've addressed. And, how can we fix it? I mean, there's something that has to be done. Because all the people that are talking about running against Eric Adams, whether it's Brad Lander, the controller, or whether it's, Scott Stringer is finding his way back into the race. I'm getting his emails all the time. Jumaane Williams is thinking about making a run. These are not exactly people who support the NYPD, and we're losing cops on the street, and we're constant calls for defunding the police. I mean, how is that going to change?
First of all, the name I'd watch out for is Andrew Cuomo, who I speak to pretty regularly. And, I know there's a lot of talk that if Adams doesn't get indicted, he won't do it. I disagree. I think Andrew Cuomo is going to run for mayor, and he's going to beat all those other losers you just talked about. Sorry, but they're losers. And how do you change it? You got to vote Republican. It's really that simple.
Andrew Cuomo or Andrew Giuliani? Andrew Giuliani.
Andrew Cuomo. No, Andrew Cuomo, the former governor.
Really?
I just gave you a nice little tidbit, Mark Healey.
Wow.
Congratulations. Yes, that's going to be. I believe. I don't know this for a fact, but I'm pretty sure that that's where he's going to go. Not governor, not president. I think he'll go for mayor. But Andrew Giuliani hopefully gets a job with Donald Trump. We'll see. But it's very simple. You got to vote Republican. Every failed policy in this country is a Democrat policy. Republicans don't want to defund the police. Those are Democrats. Your city council, from Adrian Adams to Justin Brannan, all these people, they want to defund the police, right? It's them. Who wants to stop giving money to Israel? For the most part, it's Democrats, not Republicans. I mean, just think about whatever is wrong in your neighborhood, the illegal crisis. It's all Democrats. Look at the job that Ron DeSantis has done in the state of Florida. He's done an amazing job. You got Eric Adams calling Governor Abbott in Texas a racist. In the meantime, Governor Abbott's done an amazing job. What has Adams done here? Nothing. In fact, I'll say this. I used to be friendly with Eric Adams. You know that. We've had dinners, we've had lunches. I'm done with it, man. Every major issue in this city, here's Eric Adams' answer. Here we go. All those students at Columbia, what are you going to do about it? All those protesters, they're animals, they're terrorists. Can't do nothing about it. Nope, don't have jurisdiction. They got to call us. What about all the illegals coming into town? Veterans can't get insurance. Homeless people, Americans are on the streets, and they're getting hotels, cell phones, and credit cards. Can't do nothing about it. That's the federal government. Really, what about all the crime committed on the streets and recidivism? Can't do nothing about it. Go talk to Andrew Stewart Cousins or Carl Heastie. Every problem in the city, the mayor has no answer. He can't do anything about it because all of a sudden the mayor has no power. I don't understand that. Rudy Giuliani fixed this city, but Eric Adams can't do anything. He's a Democrat. They are scared to death of all the progressives. They don't do anything. They are making this country worse. On a federal level, this Governor Hochul, she's the worst governor ever, right there with Cuomo, the rest of these people that get criticized all the time. The mayor has been maybe a little better than de Blasio. So the answer is very simple. You want to fix all these issues, vote Republican, but Democrats won't do it. I mean, Joe Biden is far and away the worst president in my lifetime. I thought Jimmy Carter was bad. Biden's 10 times worse. And you know he's still going to get 70 or 75 million people voting for him in this country because they hate Trump and he's a Democrat. He's done nothing right. Same thing here in New York. How do you fix it? Vote Republican.
What do you have coming up, Sid, that you want to let people know about? Things that you're doing with the show, or things that you're doing locally, or any causes that you're stepping out for charity wise? Let people know what you got coming up.
Well, you mentioned I won a whole bunch of awards. I got a whole bunch more coming in June. I think I have 4 awards dinners. I swear to God, I have no idea why. I'm not sure I'm deserving of any of this, but it's coming. But you're going to see the next couple of weeks. I'm going to announce 2 major rallies, one in support of the Jewish people, not just the students at Columbia, but the Jewish people, because anti-Semitism is at an all-time high. The campus is just one part of a disease that has now engulfed the whole world. And this administration is doing a terrible job. Biden stabs Bibi in the back almost every weekend. So I'm going to announce something big with that. And then Floyd Bennett Beal, before this summer is over, in fact, before it even starts, maybe, I plan with Curtis and maybe somebody else very, very big to do something in our neighborhood to make sure that people know that whether it's the Brooklyn side or the Queens side, we are not okay with these illegals living amongst us, walking to the beach, doing all these things. As a parent and as a resident of Bell Harbor, I'm not okay with it. So there'll be a couple of major things coming your way in the next couple of weeks, and I'll be sure to come back and tell you exactly when.
All right, Sid, look, I know you're a busy guy. I really appreciate you spending some time with me this morning.
No, I love it. I think you do a great job, Mark. You're a very, very important voice. I read The Wave every week. I really do. And from your political conversations, in fact, I keep I'm talking to a guy named Matt Conklin quite a bit. He's a big fan of the show. I work out at Burn Fitness on 105th Street. So I pass by that Walgreens every day, and I see Ava's name on the fence. I have one daughter. Her name is Ava. And we know Matt Conklin's daughter, Ava, was killed sitting there by a bus stop. And him and I talk now quite a bit. He listens to my show every day. He loves it. One of these days, I'm going to find out more about this case because he feels like he wasn't treated fairly. But my point is, we're such a tight-knit community, right? Whether it's the Ava Conklin story, or the folks upset about the illegals, Mary Glynn and Margaret Powers working on all the big issues for Republicans. We're a tight-knit community, and you, my friend Mark Healey, you're the voice. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sid.